Hey guys, I'm back with another video and this is going to be a continuation of our Blazing blog application using Blazor server. So before continuing this one, I would recommend you to check out all the previous parts. I'm going to drop the links of all those parts in the description box. And even if you don't want to check all the parts, I would highly recommend you to just check out the previous part, because in that we worked on implementing authentication in Blazor. So I would recommend you to check that one. In that part we implemented everything related to authentication: login, logout, displaying the content dynamically. So if you see this block, this top right, so if I log out, I am on home page. I can log in, and when I logged in, then it shows my name and this logout button. And if I click on logout, it logs me out and shows the login button and everything like this. So in this video, we are going to work on manage categories section. So if you remember the app we are building, I showed you this one. So we are going to work on this page. So we'll have this categories list. We'll have this add new category button. From there, it will open up a dialog and we can create a new category, or we can click on this edit button and we will be able to create edit an existing category. So this is, we are going to work on this one. But before that, these two links, manage categories and manage blocks, these two links, initially for our designing we kept these always visible, but now we have implemented our login and logout functionality, so these two should come only if the user is logged in, right? So let's do this. So for this, let's go to top nav bar. We have these manage categories and manage block section. So for these, we'll use authorized view, and in authorized view we are going to use authorized, and if the user is authorized, then only we'll show these two links. So we'll do something similar we did for login and logout buttons. So we had this authorized view, authorizing, authorized state, and not authorized. If it was not authorized, then we'll show login, and if the user is authorized, we'll show user's name and logout. All these we saw all these things in detail in previous video. Okay, so now if I rerun the app, I should be able to see those links only after login. So now I cannot see those two links. And now if I log in, if I click on login, then I can see these two icons, right? If I log out, then again those two links gone. Cool. Now let's start working on manage categories. So for that, inside this pages folder, I'm going to create another folder and I'm going to call it admin. Let me check. New folder, admin. Okay, and in here I'm going to create a razor component and we'll call it manage categories. Okay, so first thing we need to add page directive for the routing, and let's prefix these with admin. Admin manage categories. Cool. So this thing we need to add this in our link also. So in top nav bar we add this manage category. Before that we'll add admin, and let's add this to manage blocks as well. We'll work on this in next video. So we have manage categories, we have this manage categories. Save it, run it. Okay, now if I log in, manage categories, and I can navigate to manage categories. So let's start working on its design. So I'll have it here. and like this. Okay, so that we can see the designing in real time. Cool. So first thing, let's add a container, div class container, and in that we'll use this h3 as manage categories, and then second in right side we'll have that add new category button. So let's have a button plus btn primary add new category. Save it, and we can see this. We need these side by side. So for this, let's add a wrapper with display flags. So dflags class. All these classes are coming from Bootstrap. Save. Okay. Now let's move these to the left and right corners. So justify content between. Cool. And let's align the vertically as well. So align items center. Fine. Now we need some spacing, and we had something in our sample app. Yeah, we had this section, right? This kind of this white background. This is overlapping with the main top bar. So let's do this first. So for this, we need to go to top navbar. In top navbar, we had this header. In this header first, let's have some margin from the bottom. So we have this margin bottom 4. Save it. Cool. Now next thing is we'll have some border helper classes. So first thing, we need white color border from bottom, and we need this to a bigger border. So 4 or let's say 5. And if you save it, we can see this thing. Let's see how can we increase this. Let's check the layout. Where is layout? And on layout, we are using this fixed bottom. So do we need deflex in that case? Okay, things look fine. Okay, let's remove that. Save, and now we can see exactly what we were seeing in our sample app. Okay, now this button, let's go to manage categories page, btn primary. Let's use btn sm on this button, and this is fine. For this, let's add an hr, and we are good. Now let's add the table. So table class table, and we will design that table with all the columns, and in our case these are going to have first t head, tr, and th. First one is the serial number, second one is the id of the category, third one it is going to be name of the category, and then the url, the slug of the category. These 4 items, right? Now we'll work on the body of this table, and for this we first need to fetch the categories. Cool. So in this code block, let's have something. So first thing, let's have a model. Before model, let's have a list of category. So enumerable of category. Okay, underscore categories equals, let's have it as nullable. Now on initializing, we'll override on initialized async, here we will load our categories. So for that we need to have a service. Right now we have a user service. So we'll create a new class for our categories. So public class category service. We'll have a constructor in which we'll inject the context or block context. Okay, now we'll have first, let's have a method to get the categories. Get categories async. Okay, and from here we will simply, we are not using some DTO kind of thing or some view model, we are directly using this. So let's have context dot categories dot as no tracking, because we are not modifying anything, we don't want to track changes for this particular call. And we'll use to list async, this one, and we'll await it, and we'll add async, and return type would be task of this. Okay, so we have our categories now. Let's move this category service to a separate file. We have this category service. I am not using interface for now, so you, if you want, you can have an interface to mock and help in testing and other things. Next, I'm going to register it. So I have this add transient user service. Here I'll add this service as well. So add transient category service. Okay. Now let's go back. Get categories async. Let's go to our page here on initialized async. Let's inject the category service. Category service, and we'll fetch our categories from there. Okay, so we'll say categories equals await category service dot get categories async. Now we have these categories, but while we were loading these categories, so we should show our loading indicator. So for that, let's add one more variable here, private bool loading underscore loading equals the default value will be false, and when we are starting this call, at that time we'll set it to true. And let's wrap this call in a try catch block. For now, let's omit this catch block, and we'll have our finally block. So we'll reset it. We'll call this in try block, and we'll reset this loading inside the finally block to false. So if the call was successful or failed, no matter what, we will need to remove this loading indicator. Okay, let's stop it. We'll run it again. So we have these categories. Okay. Now when we were loading the categories, at that time in our table body, what I want if we were loading this, so we'll have a tr with a td with call span of 1 2 3 4, call span of 4, so that we can display a single line here, and we'll say, let's say loading categories. Okay. Now, if we are not loading, then there would be second condition, which will be not loading and our categories if this is null. Okay, that means we did not get any categories. So it will come here and we'll say a message here that no categories found. And if this was also not the case, we went to else case, and in else we will have our list of categories. So for that, let's add a for each loop here. So we'll say for category in underscore categories. We know it will be not null for sure. Here we'll add our tr with td. First is the serial number. So for that, let's have int serial number equals 1. Here we'll use that serial number SNO, and the second was ID. So we'll say category dot ID. Then third and fourth, the third is going to be the title, sorry, name. The fourth one will be slug, the URL of the category. Okay, after this, we need to increase this counter. So we'll say SNO plus plus, or we could have used like this only. It's up to you how you are using it. So we have set up the category listing. Now if we run it, because we have no category in our database, so it will show that blank, no categories found. Let's see, we have the app, manage categories, and it is not showing that message because we checked category is null, but category is not null in this case, it is empty. So we'll check this, or category dot any like this. If it is not loading and category is null, or we do not have any categories, then we'll show no categories found. Save it, and we can now see no categories found. Cool. Now we need to, because we don't have any category, now we need to create the category. So for that, when we click on this add new category button, it should open the dialog box. So for that dialog box, I'm going to use the native HTML5's native dialog element. So let's do that. We will have it somewhere around here, but let's create it as a separate component. So let's create a new folder. On the root, we'll say components, and to group these, let's create a folder again, and in this admin we'll use a razor component. Let's say save category form. Okay, save. Cool. We'll have a form here. So edit form, and edit form requires a model. So let's create a model, private category underscore category, and we'll use default null, default this new, and then in this model will pass this category model. Okay, let's rename this category model, right? So it will be clear category model, and we'll use data annotations. So let's use data annotation validator. Okay, now we'll use a bootstrap border here. So div plus card, and in this card, same we'll have card header, body, and footer. So div plus card header, card body, and card footer. And in this header, we will simply show an H4, let's say save category, we'll make it dynamic. But for now, let's have it save category only. In card footer, we are going to have our submit, the save and cancel buttons. So button type button. This will be class btn and btn default. And this will be for cancel. And then let's copy it. Button submit, button primary, and this will be for saving the category. Save category. Now let's use this on our manage categories page. But before that, let's add its namespace to the imports.razor. So we'll use Blazor blog.components.admin here so that we can directly add that on this page. So we can add it here like this. Let's have it outside of this. We can have that save category form directly like this, but we need to have it inside dialog, right? So HTML5 gives us a dialog element. So this dialog, inside this dialog, let's use this. And for now, let me have this open attribute, save it, let's run it. Share, manage categories, and we can see this dialog. We'll make it dynamic, but first let's work on its design. Okay. So manage categories, save category form. First thing, let's have some CSS styles here. So style, type, text, CSS. Okay, here we'll directly use this, but it's never a good idea to directly apply CSSs on the HTML elements. We should always use class or ID selectors. But I'm doing this because I know there will be only single dialog on this component. So this style is going to be scoped to this component. So in this, we'll use first padding S0. So this space, we don't need this space. So save it. Okay, now this border color. Let's first make this border kind of smaller. It is very thick now, right now. So border 2px solid and our color. And we had our color in where we had, yeah, color purple. We'll use the same color. So let's use the CSS variable here like this. And if we save it, we can see this. Cool. Now next thing, this save category, this section, this header, we need this color for this header. So for this, let's go to our save categories form, save category form on card header. We'll have, do we have a class BG or something like that? No, right? Let's create a global class BG, let's say purple. Here we'll use background color as this variable, this color purple. Cool. And we'll use this class here. So card header BG purple. Save it. Okay. Now we need text white. Okay. And on here after the save category, we need that cross button, right? That. So for that cross button, we'll add it here only. So it will be a button type button with class btn, btn sm, and btn danger, btn danger. And let's add X here, this, but we need this side by side. So let's go to this card header, and on this card header, let's add the display flags and justify content between. Now these are side by side, and let's align these items vertically to the center as well. Align items center. Okay, can have some min width on this. So for that, on this only, let's add style and min width of, I don't know, 250 pixel. Okay, this looks okay. So we are good now. Okay, now we'll have our, okay, but before form, let's have these buttons as well in the nice form. So on this card footer, again, we'll use display flags, same classes to, yeah, justify content between and align item center. Okay, cancel and save. And let's have BT and SM also. So these buttons will be smaller. Okay, these are fine now. Now we can add our form inside this. There is this thing, right? This white background. This is coming from where? H1 plus card. Card has border. Okay. So on this card, let's have border 0, border 0, and we are good now. Okay. Next thing, let's add the form. So to add form, we'll use card body, and in this card body, we will use div class mb3, and here we'll have label with class form label, and it will be category name, and here we'll have input text, bind value for category model dot name, and on this we'll have some bootstrap classes. So form control, and a placeholder category name, and we are good. After that, let's add the validation message. So validation message for okay. Now let's copy the same thing and we add it again for the slug. Slug, slug category slug. Okay, so we have these things ready. And now when edit, save it. Okay, we need to rerun. Okay, rerun. So when we save it, we need to send the request, or we need to call a method from our category service, right? So manage categories. We have this category name and category slug. When we click on the save button, we should send we would call a method from our category service. So for that, let's make the connection between these two components. First is the manage categories razor page, and then save categories razor component. Okay, so when we click on the submit button, it submits the form, and when it is submitting the form, we'll trigger an event. So for that, first let's have method here. So that will be private async task, let's say save category async. And when we are saving the category, or maybe let's have that logic here only. Let's inject the category service here. Inject category service, category service, category service, and we'll save our category in this. So let's create a method here. Public async task save category async, and we'll get a category object here. Let's call it model, and from here first thing we'll check if model.id is greater than 0. That means we are updating a category, and if that's not the case, we are actually creating a new category. Okay, so first let's do creating. So we'll use context dot categories dot add async model. We'll await it, and in update case, what we'll do, we'll say context dot categories dot update model. And after this, we'll simply save the changes. So await context dot save changes async. Now, what if when we're creating the category, we need to have a logic to create the slug, or at least verify that slug, right? Category URL, because that is going to be displayed in the URL, so it should not have any bad characters in the main for URL structure basically. So URL supports uh, slash alphanumeric characters and hyphen and underscore, right? Apart from those, we should remove all the characters. So let's have a helper method here, private string, let's say slugify. We'll have category name here, and we'll replace everything. We'll use regular expressions. So regex dot replace And here first thing, the source is going to be name dot to lower, and then we'll use a regular expression, so one pattern which is going to be anything which is not A to Z, capital A to Z, 0 to 9, or hyphen or underscore. If anything that is not one of these, then we'll replace that character with an underscore. Now whenever we use regular expressions, we should always use we should have compiled option, right? So replacement, regular expression, regex options. So regex options dot compiled, and after that match timeout. This is very important. So this regular expression, this is actually a very uh, let's say heavy operation. So whenever we use, it's always a better approach to use some timeout. So we'll use max 1 second. Okay, you can maximize it. Right, okay, max. Now we'll get this from here, and after that let's add one more thing. What if there were two consecutive non-supported characters? It will have hyphen hyphen, right? So we don't want that, so we'll replace it again, and we'll replace two hyphens with single hyphen. And after that, if somehow the hyphen is at the start or the end, we'll simply trim that character from start and end, and we'll return this. So because this is a single line, we can use this. Cool. We are allowing user to update or add the slug from here, right? So it's better to move this to some extension method. Okay, so do we have some folder for extension methods? No. So let's create a new folder for extension methods. And here we'll create a class and we call it string extensions. Public static class, and let's copy this method here, and it should be public static, and then this should be this. So now what if the name is null, right? We should handle that case as well, but we are using this thing, so we should be good. Okay, for now let's have it like this only. Let's add this namespace to our global usings and our imports underscore imports as well, because we are going to use it on razor component as well. Okay, save all, slugify site global using import. Okay, now when we are creating it, updating it, saving changes, everything looks fine here. Okay, let's use this method in here. So we have the same category async. Here we'll use if we got some error, right? So let's handle errors as well. So try catch. We are not returning anything from here, right? So here if we'll say, let's say category service dot save category async, and we passed our category model, then how would we know if the operation was successful or not, right? So for that we need to have something in return, and for these cases I prefer to create a simple object. So in models I'll create a new struct and let's say method result. Method result. So we can have the actual, what we say, the status basically. So we'll use it public record struct method result, and here we'll have let's say tool status, which will give us if the operation was successful or not, and then we'll have another nullable property here and we'll call it error message. Default value is going to be null. And now I'm going to have this helper factory methods. So public static method result success. Here I'll simply return this. So this so this is going to call this constructor only with true, and there is no error message in this case. And let's create one more for error. So let's call it failure, and in this we'll pass an error message. So if this is failing, then there should be some error message, right? So false and this error message. Okay, now we are good. Let's use this method result in our category service to return it. Method result. So here, if everything is successful, we'll simply return method result dot success. If it was not successful, we'll have that exception message here, and we can log it to log exception. And after that, we'll return method result dot failure with this error message. Now we would always know the actual status, right? If it was successful or not, and if it was not successful, what was the error message. Okay, now let's use this method result on our save category this thing also. So let's say result. Now we know if this operation was successful or it was not successful. Okay, so now next thing is we did this. Now we need to notify its parent, in this case our manage categories page, that this operation is successful, right, or not successful, just whatever it was, we should notify the parent. So for that we'll use event callback, and let's return this result on this event callback of type method result, and it will be, let's say, on save category, on save, okay, save category, on save category, and this is going to be parameter. Here we'll say on save category dot invoke async, and we'll pass the result. Oh wait, okay, save. And now on save category, we are going to use this on our manage categories result page. Here, when we are doing this save category form, we'll simply add a handler for this event on save category. So let's create a method here, private async task. Let's say on save, let's have the same name, on save category, and it will expect a parameter of type method result. So let's say save result or save category result. And now we know if the operation was successful or not using this save category result dot status. So we know category saved successfully, category saved successfully. And if this was not the case, there was some error in saving category. Okay, so if there was some error in saving category, let's notify the user. So for now, what we can do, we can simply display a JavaScript alert for now. Okay, let's try that. That we'll need to inject IJS runtime. Let's say JS only. What happened? Okay. On save category. On save category. Fine. So this JS, let's create a helper method. So private async task, and let's say alert async, and we'll say message here. Here we'll use async js dot invoke void async, and we'll use the native alert, browser's native alert. So we could say window.alert, and we can pass the message here. So it will simply display the alert. Here, let's have it like alert async, and here we'll say because this operation was not successful, so we had another property which is error message, right? This time, let's add a wait as well, and we know this is not going to be null, so we can add this thing. And if it was successful, for now, let's use await alert async to show that it category saved successfully. So category saved successfully. Okay, so it was a lot of code. Now let's see if this works. Well, share, manage categories. If we'll save it, we got this error. And if we add something, let's say SQL Server. Okay, we are not using Slugify, we'll use it. For now, let's save it. Is it doing something? Let's add a breakpoint on save category, and in okay, it is not doing anything because we have not used it. So we'll say on valid submit, we'll use our save category async method. This method. Fine. Save it. Let's refresh. SQL Server, save, breakpoint hit in manage categories. That means we got the result. Let's see what is the result. Status true and error message null. So we have the correct status. Let's continue, and if we check category saved successfully came, and if we refresh this page now, we should see that category because this time it will be able to fetch the category from database. Okay, now let's trigger some error manually. So what we'll do, let's go to category service, and from here let's throw some error. Throw new exception with some message, test message while saving category. Let's say test error message while saving category. Save it, and let's try to see this time. It should not save it, and it should simply show this error message in the alert box. Manage categories, and it does not matter whatever we use this time. Save and test error message while saving categories. So this functionality is working. Okay, stop. And let's remove this. Let's come here, saving it here. Okay, now we need to have some that same. We have this loading thing already. So let's use this loading flag. Can we use this loading flag? No, right? Because this is from here. Okay, maybe we'll try to add it later. But next thing is we need to have that slug URL. Whenever we are adding something to the name, it should automatically slugify that and fill the that box, slug box, this second box, right? So for that, whenever we are leaving this field will slugify the name, right? For simplicity. So what we can do, on this input text we'll add one more event that is on blur. Here we'll say on name blur. We'll define this. Let's have it here. So private async task on name blur. So when we are blurring the name, blur event means when this element is losing its focus at that time. So here we'll check if our category model is not null. Underscore category model dot name, sorry. If name had some value, then we'll slugify it and we'll set it to category model dot slug, right? So we'll use category model dot name dot slugify. It will be the default value. Okay. Now what if user modifies this slug, right? We don't need this async task. We can have it void only. If user modify it and make it let's say not supported or invalid, we need to modify that again here, right? So we'll verify. If not verify, we can simply override it. So here we'll say a double check, basically we'll say model dot slug inside this, not inside create category. So we'll say model dot slug equals model dot slug dot slugify. Now we are giving user the hint. Let's say manage categories, and let's use something entity framework. And now if I blur this, you see this automatically gets filled. And that additional check, that was what if I did this. So I add a space, then I added this EF, maybe like this. Right now we have this. This is not a correct URL. URLs cannot have spaces. So for this, I have added that double check in a category service. Now it is going to slugify this slug. So in this case, it is going to modify this. We can check it. Let's add a breakpoint here. Save. It came here. And if we'll check model.slug, it is entity framework EF. Now if we slugify it, now we'll have it -EF, the correct form. Add async, continue, saved successfully. After saving this successfully, we should clear out this, this category, right? This thing. So for this, let's come here. Yeah, first let's see if that got in here, so we can try refreshing it, and we refreshed and we have the second item here. Okay, so next thing is when we save the category, then it should go back to the default initial value, right? So before invoking it, we'll say if the result was successful. If this was the case, we'll simply do this thing. We'll reset the category model. And in this manage categories, if the operation was successful, we should reload the list. So we have two approaches. Either we know we have added a new category, we can simply add that category to this collection, or if we don't want to do that, we can simply reload the entire list. So for that, we can extract this code out to a separate method, private async task load categories async, and we can call this from async, from the on initialized async. And after this category saved successfully, we can call it from here also. Okay, now let's restart and we'll see these two changes. Okay, it's here, manage categories. What should I use now? Let's say Blazor. Blazor, save, came here, remove the breakpoint, continue, and category saved successfully. Right now, values are here and it has loaded only two items. When we say OK, this got cleared and it reloaded, and we can see the this new value here. Okay, fine. Now next thing is this save category. This dialog, this is always here. It should also be dynamic. So when we click on this add new category, then only it should open. And if we click on this close button, then it should hide. And if we click on cancel, then it should also be hide. And if we click on save, and if the operation was successful, then also the save category dialog box should be hidden or should be removed from the page. So all this thing is remaining in this. So I think that's all for this video. In next video, we are going to work on edit category and making this dialog dynamic. So it will be visible only if we click on edit or add new category. And this save category, this text, this will also be dynamic. So dynamic means, let me pull out the sample demo. Yeah, so if you see, if we click on this add new category, it says add new category, and if we click on edit, then it says edit category. So this dynamic text and these values, when we click on edit, it should fill up the existing values. All these things will work in the next video. So that's all for this video. Please like this video if you like my content, and share this video and subscribe my channel. I'll be back. Thank you.